Everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. This is a podcast dedicated to the 2024 Supporters Shield winners. That is Inter Miami. I'm your host, Scotty. This is my co-host, Saur. We are less than 24 hours since Inter Miami went on the road and beat the Columbus Crew at Lower.com Field to lift their first trophy of the season. How are you feeling, my friend?
Has the effect worn off since last night? Has the excitement gone off? I'll be honest, I had a very long day, so I'm very sleepy and I'm tired. But now that we've started recording, now that we're on the podcast, I am feeling energized again. What a night, man. It was really fun. It was a great evening. It was a great performance and can't wait to talk about it.
Incredible performance. I think I have a lot to say about this game, and I want to do all of that. But before we get into the game, I want to just talk about the report this morning from Ben Jacobs, who is a British journalist who reported that the MLS or the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to use their one hosting slot in next summer's Club World Cup on the Supporters Shield winners, which is now Inter Miami. This has been something everyone has thought was probably going to be the case. It's not officially official. He is a British journalist, so I don't know how he's getting that sort of scoop, but it is a credible journalist going out there and saying that the U.S. Soccer Federation has decided to award the hosting slot for next year's Club World Cup to the Supporter Shield winners, which is, of course, Inter Miami. So it sounds like Inter Miami, as we thought for a long time, is going to be a participant in next summer's Club World Cup. And as Sean is correcting me, it is CONCACAF, not U.S. Soccer, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They want to capitalize as long as Messi's here. And as soon as Inter Miami confirmed their position as Supporters Shield champions, and as soon as they had the opportunity to trigger that, feels like they're going to do it, and they should do it. It's going to be so fun to have Lionel Messi play in that Club World Cup. And I know they've changed the format of the Club World Cup a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see how it fits the teams that Inter Miami is going to play up against. It's going to be a fun tournament overall. And if the US gets to host it, then why not?
Yeah, I also know that there's been a big controversy about this spot. It is, of course, shady that MLS and the powers that be did not announce how this spot was going to be awarded long ago. Traditionally, it has been the defending champion of the host nation, but that rolls over. It used to be on a yearly basis, and so it is up to interpretation as we get into this new once every 4-year argument. And of course, Inter Miami is not the MLS Cup champions, which probably would have gotten this if the U.S. had been hosting this tournament beforehand. Instead, they are the Supporters Shield champion. They can still become the MLS Cup champion, but they haven't clinched that yet. But I will say my only point is I have no interest in hearing any Columbus fans saying they deserve this spot over us. If you want to say that it belongs to the MLS Cup winner at the end of this season, I think that's totally fair. But I think there is absolutely no way to say with any definitive, reasoning that Columbus deserves this spot over Inter Miami. They have the same number of trophies, and head-to-head, Inter Miami has won 3 of the last 5 games and drawn another. And so Columbus's record, and as impressive as they have been, I really don't think when you look at it overall is impressive enough to just demand a spot. Of course, if they go on to win the MLS Cup, I'm sure they will be very bitter. And that, I think, will be fair. And if you want to say it should be the MLS Cup champion, I think that's a fair thing to say as well. But to say that any other team deserves it now more than Miami, I think is wrong.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence about that, let's be honest, because Columbus has been to, 5 finals in the last 2 years, something like that. It's been crazy. And it is over a span of 4 years, right? So
4 finals.
Yeah, so they have been very good, and they've been an elite team in the MLS.
But how many of those finals did they win?
2, I think.
And how many trophies has Inter Miami gotten in the same time span? So
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? And what happened when they play head-to-head?
It's, I think, going to come down to the MLS Cup. So, anyways, I'm an Inter Miami fan. I want nothing more than Inter Miami to be at the Club World Cup. But I can see why certain Columbus fans would pipe up and say that their team deserves to be there. Fine, I can see their point of view, but I do think it's going to come down to the MLS Cup in terms of.
No. The report today is that
Yeah, I
it's
know.
support shield.
Technically, Inter Miami is going to be potentially part of the Club World Cup, but they will have a better claim if Columbus goes on to win the MLS Cup. But listen, we've not even started the playoffs yet. We don't know what the path for each team is going to be like. And for all we know, Inter Miami is going to win the MLS Cup and put all that conversation and argument to bed and be the best MLS team that we know that they are on paper. So I'm excited to see them play, man. Go out and show your talents to the rest of the world. Imagine players like Yannick Wright, Ian Frey, Noah Allen playing against some of these international stars, international teams. It's going to be a fun tournament.
Yeah, and just to be clear again, because sometimes I am bad at explaining myself. I mean, as of right now, I don't think any other fan base can claim they deserve it more. Of course, if the Crew go on to win MLS Cup or the Galaxy go on to win MLS Cup, they will have the right to say, actually, it should be us. Or if LAFC does it and they've won more MLS Cups than anyone else, at that point, I think it's fair for someone to say they deserve it more. But as of right now, I don't think it's fair for anyone to say that. But just my opinion. Let's talk about last night. We were nervous. We were excited. We knew this was going to be a big game. We saw the lineups, and it was clear both teams were going 100% to win that game. They treated it like a final. On the broadcast, they talked about how this was the biggest regular season game in years. It was the biggest regular season game this season, I believe, and it absolutely lived up to the hype. So before we say anything else, I just want to thank and congratulate the supporters of the Columbus Crew and everyone in Columbus and the players and team and staff of the Columbus Crew for putting together a team and roster and performance like they did last night, because certainly they were worthy of the moment, the match, and the expectations that were put on that game. And it wouldn't have been as fun or as sweet if they didn't bring everything that they did to the table. So again, phenomenal atmosphere against a very, very, very good team. And that's what makes it so much fun to go out there and have that type of performance and victory and everything that comes with it.
Our biggest worry was that both the teams will maybe take a day off and not treat this as a important game, because let's be honest, it's midweek. Both teams have played a lot of football over the last few days, last few weeks. And you could say that it didn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things if both came out with a draw. Yes, if Inter Miami won, they would have been Supporters Shield champions. Yes, if Columbus won, they would have been one step closer to the Supporters Shield. But there was still this doubt in our minds, at least, that the teams are going to take a day off and put on a fairly weak side to protect some of their better players. So glad that didn't happen. And as soon as the lineup came out, it genuinely felt like both coaches are going for it, because Tata Martino moved away from his 4-4-2 formation. Wilfred Nancy put on the best players that he had available to him. And it just felt like, okay, this is going to be an absolute war when both teams take the field. And the game lived up to the expectations, because a lot of the times fans build it up. The MLS can build it up. We had the Monterrey versus Miami game, which we thought was going to be a massive, massive game in terms of two federations going toe-to-toe, best teams in both federations almost. And it's sort of disappointed, mostly because Miami didn't perform to its potential. And I did have that worry that Inter Miami might not be able to live up to the billing of this game, and the floodlights might be a little bit too bright for some of our players. But my goodness, both teams performed and how they performed. The scoreline was everything we wanted it to be. It wasn't a one-goal snooze fest. Every team was going for it. Players gave it their everything on the pitch. We had some weird refereeing decisions. We had some weird, goofy moments that led to goals. It was back and forth for a long while. And I would say it was very close to 50-50 that Inter Miami edged out narrowly, but they deserved the victory at the end of the day. And completely agree with you. Kudos to Columbus for hosting a great game, for putting out the best players on the pitch, and the fans were being fantastic. It was a great atmosphere, great watch, and I was on the edge of my seats for the entire time. I'll stop my monologue now.
Yeah, no, but for me, the last 20 minutes, basically from when Cucho Hernandez scores
They're the same
in
player,
this.
basically, aren't they?
Wow. When he scores in the 61st minute, another half an hour to go, Inter Miami only has a 1-goal lead at that point. Basically, the rest of the game, I was standing up. I couldn't sit down at that point. So the nervousness, the energy, the excitement, the anticipation, all of those emotions that make sports so great. I felt all of it last night. And of course, the jubilation that comes with getting over the finish line. Let's get into it, and we'll recap it because it has been about a day since we watched the game. And so for anyone that is listening to this after the fact, and it's been a little while since the game, let's run through how it went down. Quick start for Columbus. They certainly came out with possession of the ball and trying to put their statement and their style of play on the game. It led to an early chance in the 8th minute where Cucho Hernandez actually puts the ball in the back of the net. He is called off sides, but certainly Ian Frey didn't close down well in that moment, and he doesn't get punished for it. And I thought it was a big learning moment from him because he was very good at closing down throughout much of the rest of the game. And then Inter Miami returns the favor in the 24th minute off of a corner. The ball comes back to Lionel Messi, puts it into the box. Cello Weekend in the right spot at the right time with the header into goal. That one was also called offsides, this time because Diego Gómez was offsides, and they claimed that he was impacting the play. Certainly Taylor Twellman agreed with that, and so it wasn't a big talking point on the broadcast, but I thought it was a little bit more questionable than that. But fair
Should
play.
have been given a goal.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it should have been a goal because Diego Gómez was not interfering in play. I don't think he was impeding the vision of the goalkeeper. He may have started going for the ball, but it wasn't much that he could have done to affect the path of the ball. There was no interference from his end. It just, I don't know why it was given an offside. I feel like if the linesman had not raised their flag, it would have been given a goal. So the fact that the linesman did give their flag up is one of the reasons I got called off. And it's so close. I thought Inter Miami was definitely good for a goal there.
I'll be honest, that was my initial reaction, but like I said, they just sort of thought it was the right decision on the broadcast, so they didn't show a ton of replays. We only really got that one down the line, but that didn't really show where Diego Gómez was positioned compared to everyone else, only that he was offside. So without making too declarative of a statement, I'll just say I don't think we got enough replays on that one because I certainly was with you in the moment. Just 2 minutes later, Mo Farsi fouls Sergio Busquets. He's about to get a yellow card, and then that's the first controversy where he sort of kicks up into the spikes of Sergio Busquets. I don't think either of us thought that was a foul on Busquets, so we'll just fast forward there, but I did want to mention it because it does come back into play later in this game.
I want to say one thing on that, right? There's a lot of the times, and this is very much like a sport like boxing. If anyone watches boxing as a fan, the commentators can really influence what's happening on the pitch in terms of the mind of the fans and the viewers, because they start to think a certain way, or depending on how the commentators are speaking. If you switch off the commentary, that's not a big foul by Sergio Busquets. Like they basically called for Sergio Busquets' head there, saying that he should potentially be sent off and it should be considered a red card. No, there was a 50-50 challenge. He got the ball first. His studs were, by the way, not raised. I don't think he went in with that studs first. So I don't know what the clamor was about and why they were calling for Sergio Busquets to get a card. Maybe a yellow card, yes, but I didn't think there was much in there. And the referee actually did really well. We spoke about this yesterday, and there was a point about, I mentioned that the referee didn't have a good game, but I think we're going to come back to this later. But that particular moment, I thought the referee did really well.
Yeah, I agree. There's a reason that they judge boxing matches from 3 different angles. And if you only have that one specific angle and one frame of reference, it's going to clear or cloud how you view a situation. 34th minute, Christian Ramirez got off a really nice opportunity and he put it just wide. I actually thought this was their very best opportunity the entire game. And he really did nail the outside corner. It just had a little bit too much tail on it. and pull it about a foot offsides, but he had Drake Callender beat for sure. And then Inter Miami finally breaks the deadlock in the 45th minute. Jordi Alba with a beautiful ball over the top to Messi, who brought it down, bounces it off the defender, bounces it forward, and then gets to the ball before Patrick Schulte is able to get a deflection or push it away, puts it past Schulte and into the back of the net. I will tell you, when I first watched it, it was Alba was central and it was a left footer, and I thought it came off of Noah Allen's foot, and I thought that was the greatest play Noah Allen's ever made. Turns out it was Jordi Alba who had sort of come centrally, but still an incredible pass by Jordi Alba, sets up Messi, who finally gets into the game after, I think, some hiccups in the first half. And then, of course, he does what Messi does and puts that ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, I didn't think Messi had a particularly good half. The first 45 minutes, he was quite out of it, didn't look very sharp in certain positions and wasn't involved as much. But the goal came when the goal came, because he's Messi and he does what he does best. That's score goals. That was a very non-traditional Alba-Messi link-up. Route one, send the ball up. Messi being the target man up top is not something we say normally, but it was good to see him control that ball so well. I thought he had some really good touches. Got a little bit lucky that the ball broke free the way it did, but he reacted the first there and just great finish. I thought Inter Miami was good on that one goal because they deserved to go ahead. It was a little bit of a mixed reaction again from the commentators saying that it was against the run of play and stuff. And I ranted to you about this. I thought it was a very 50-50 game and either teams could have gone ahead, and Inter Miami just took their chances. There wasn't much in the game in terms of chances in front of goal. And when Inter Miami got the chance, they did it because they have the GOAT in their team.
Yeah, this felt like a moment of two very equal teams, except one of them has the best player. And the best player on the pitch does what the best player on the pitch does. And he provided the opening goal. But if you want to talk about world class and you want to talk about the greatest player of all time, let's talk about the second goal, which happens 5 minutes into stoppage time. Luis Suárez earns kind of a cheap foul on Rudy Camacho, but it sets up a perfect opportunity for a free kick for Lionel Messi. And I will say, I was watching the game and I thought to myself, man, if Inter Miami scores here, the Columbus Crew are going to be very frustrated about that foul because it was a very weak foul. Suárez kind of cheeky earning it. And I think the referee gave it a little bit soft there, but doesn't matter because when it comes time to step up for the free kick, it was going to be Lionel Messi. Speaking of the commentary, obviously Lionel Messi whips it around the corner and into the back of the net. Schulte, no chance. The dialogue from the commentary crew for the rest of the game was about how Columbus played this so poorly instead of giving Lionel Messi credit for what an amazing free kick.
I don't think Schulte could have done anything on that free kick. He was stood still. It was so quick, beautifully hit. It dipped perfectly. And I just want to go back before we move on from this moment. Luis Suárez did two good things this entire game. Both those things led to a goal. One of them was getting the foul. The other was scoring the goal. So he does what he does as well. But Messi, man, what a free kick. What a fantastic free kick.
Yeah. So Inter Miami goes in at half 2-0. And on the one hand, it felt very even. It felt like the Columbus Crew were certainly having moments where they were in control of the game. They were able to progress the ball. That first 20 minutes, I thought they were definitely in charge. I thought it was more even as we entered halftime and Inter Miami was sort of finding their footing. But certainly nothing that we haven't seen between these two teams in the prior two matches. And as we saw in the Leagues Cup, Columbus was certainly capable of coming back in the second half and scoring 3 goals. At halftime, are you thinking about any subs? Are you thinking this is very nervy, or are you already with one hand on the trophy?
No, I was actually very comfortable in that half because I thought Inter Miami went in with a very different approach than we had this season against Columbus the 2 times we played them. Yes, for the first 20 minutes, Columbus was the better team. They were playing much better on the ball. Our midfield was nervous. Some of our young players were nervous. Yannick Bright gave the ball away. Noah Allen gave the ball away cheaply. Redondo was a little bit nervous as well. You could see a sense of nervous energy flowing through the team in that first 15, 20 minutes. And Columbus, rightly so, was on top of us because they are the home team. They were taking the initiative. But what showed me that Inter Miami had a different approach this game was this moment before the first goal was disallowed for Inter Miami, the corner that was disallowed. There was a moment before that where Cello Wigan got up top received a ball from, I think, Jordi Alba from the other side and tried to dink it into the box, which I believe led to the corner. And that entire sequence was fantastic ball possession and passing and ball creation by Inter Miami. They started from the back, and every single player was involved in getting the ball up the pitch to get Wigan in a position that he could potentially be goal dangerous. And that showed me that we're not just relying on counterattacks. We're actually playing football here. We're ready to possess the ball when we need to, control the play when we need to, and we want to go toe-to-toe with Columbus. Whether we did that perfectly or not, that's another question, and that's a debate. But I do think I admired the approach that Tata Martino picked up. And then after the 20 minutes, we grew a lot into the game. We started creating those chances, and the goal came because we were trying things and trying to get in front and, make those opportunities. It wasn't like we were sitting back, absorbing pressure and hitting them on the counter. So overall, I thought that was a really good half from Inter Miami. Maybe a little bit lucky to go up 2 goals, but that's what happens when you have that one extra X factor in your team that can take you just beyond the other team's quality.
No, I think you nailed it. And we're going to dedicate some of this podcast to talking about what did we learn from this game that we can take forward. And I think part of that is with Messi, we feel like we can go out there and be the dominant team and not feel like we have to sit back and try and, be practical and hit on the counter and try and steal the game like we did really the first 2 times we played the Columbus Crew. So excellent observation. Let's get into the second half because this is when things really get wild. First 20 seconds of the second half, the ball pushes forward. Jordi Alba tries to clear the ball. It sort of smacks off of Mo Farsi's ankle and falls right to Diego Rossi. So 21 seconds into the second half, Rossi has an absolutely beautiful opportunity, and he puts it right in the back of the net with a curler into the far post. Terrible way to start the second half, but an incredible way to answer just a minute later. In the 48th minute, Ian Frey puts the boot to ball, pushes it forward, and Patrick Schulte and Rudy Camacho have a miscommunication. They run into each other, and the ball's just sitting there in the air, waiting for Luis Suárez to run underneath and head it into goal. So 20 seconds into the second half, Columbus gets 1 goal back to make it 2-1. About 20 seconds of play later, Inter Miami says, "You thought that was fast? Watch this." And they make it 3-1. Either of those moments you felt we have to stop on?
I was going to say this game is the perfect representation of the MLS. And it was really the perfect representation of the MLS. It had some really good soccer. It had some really good moments. And then it had some really goofy moments. I would say Columbus was very sharp. I thought when I first saw the game that Rossi might have been offside. I don't think so. I think that was a legit goal. They scored that goal well. Came at us fast and furious, and we weren't awake. Caught us on the break, and they did well. But Ian Frey with a bit of a Hail Mary pass, and credit to Luis Suárez. He didn't give up on that ball, and it didn't come to him. It was very obvious that Patrick Schulte was going to come and collect it, but Camacho had an absolute horror show, man. Someone should have shouted for that ball because this shouldn't happen at this level. And good on Luis Suárez to be alert and awake and just nod it into the open net. His header was quite good. I'll give him that. And it was very lucky that we got that 1 goal back because it could have been squeaky bum time, let's be honest, if we didn't score immediately.
Yes, you're definitely right about that. But I want to say, I think the first goal from Columbus was just as lucky because Jordi Alba was in an absolutely brilliant position to clear the ball. He smacks it. Should have been, going back to Columbus' side of the pitch. It just happens to hit the back ankle of Mo Farsi. That was not something Mo Farsi was trying to do. It was not intentional for Columbus, and it bounces right to Diego Rossi. So both of them, I thought, were very fortunate sort of screw-ups by the team that conceded the goal. Obviously, Jordi Alba not as embarrassing because it's just one of those things that happens. The Columbus one was certainly more embarrassing. But both, I think, lucky. Neither that were just beautiful build-up that the team just earned. Sort of the ball falling in the right spot for both teams. And I think for both teams, you have to kind of see that exchange and say, you know what, you got one, we got one, and we'll just play from here. Fast forwarding to the 59th minute, there was a really dumb foul from Rudy Camacho and he's given a yellow card on a ball that Luis Suarez is trying to hold up. Camacho sort of throws him off. It's clearly a foul, and he gets a yellow card because it was the third or fourth foul directly from Camacho on Luis Suarez. And so I don't think it was actual yellow card foul, but just the consistent infringement of Camacho on Luis Suarez is what I think earned him the yellow card in the 59th minute. Keep that in mind, because that's going to come back to bite them. But not until we get bitten with a bad right hand from Noah Allen. Mo Farsi on the baseline trying to save a ball from going out of bounds, kicks it back in play as it's sort of on the line going out of bounds, tips the finger of Noah Allen, but it is in the penalty box. And sometimes you get those calls. Inter Miami gives up a penalty because of a handball on Noah Allen. And in the 61st minute, Cucho Hernandez finishes to his left. Drake Callender goes to his left and is unable to make the save. It's 3-2, and it's once again squeaky bum time.
Question: penalty or no penalty?
It's a penalty.
Not a penalty.
It's a penalty.
No, because the rules are okay. I don't know what the exact MLS rules say, but FIFA rules say that if somebody hits the ball into somebody else's hand and their hand is not in a awkward position or in a position that's unnatural outside their body, it's not a penalty. Noah Allen's hands were right in front of his face. Farsi hit the ball straight at him. He could not have done anything in that split second to take his hands away. I don't think that's a penalty.
I've seen that called. But you know what I will say? There are lots of times where it's called a penalty and lots of times where it's not called a penalty because the handball rules are so ambiguous. So if you want to scream and shout that it wasn't a penalty, that's fine. I'm here for that. I will leave that to you, because 2 minutes later, Rudy Camacho has another tackle, this time on Federico Redondo, and this time with his studs up, an obvious yellow card tackle, and he gets sent out of the game in the 63rd minute. And Inter Miami goes up a man, so they give up a goal on a penalty, but then 2 minutes later they go up a man, and once again Inter Miami has a momentum swing back in their direction, just as it feels like the Columbus Crew are starting to pick up what they're doing in this game.
Yeah, that was a studs up challenge. He got a little bit of the ball, but I think that was the correct call. Yellow card should be given. Very, very unlucky that that happened immediately after that stupid yellow card that Camacho got. He didn't have a particularly good game. And I mentioned this in the pregame show that their defense is not amazing. It's really good. It's one of the best defenses in the league. Obviously, they haven't conceded that many goals, but it's not the Walker Zimmerman defense, that's for sure. And if you come at them, you can actually hurt them. Camacho was poor in this game, and that red card was coming, I guess. With that foul, you couldn't have done much with it.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a second yellow. If you're Camacho, you got to be mad at yourself for the first yellow, not the second one. That is 100% a yellow, and so it's a second he gets sent off.
I was mad at Twelman and his commentary partner for bringing it back to the Sergio Busquets tackle. It wasn't even the same, man. It just wasn't the same. It was really, really jarring to hear them talk this game. So jarring.
Yeah. And the game sort of settles into what it was going to be for the last 30 to really 40 minutes of the game. Inter Miami up a man, but deciding we're going to defend this lead instead of trying to kill the game. And so they shell up a little bit. They keep their back line deep, that midfield sits deep, and they just have Suarez and Messi up top as sort of outlets to go to. And so Columbus is given a lot of the ball, despite being down a man, they dominate possession. They are trying to create opportunities. And finally, in the 80th minute, it feels like they might have the breakthrough, and Daewon Jones gets to the byline, goes to his left down that left side, and whips in a cross that hits the right hand of Ian Frey. And once again, I'm thinking, this is not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. They got their first goal because Jordi Alba just happened to clear it into the ankle of Mo Farsi. They got their second goal because of a very unlucky handball by Noah Allen, and they were going to get their third goal because of another very unlucky handball by Ian Frey. If you give the first one, you have to give the second one to be consistent, and so it's, again, a penalty. And Cucho Hernandez steps up to the penalty shot. Are you good with that penalty? Are you good with that handball?
I am. That's 100% a penalty. That's a penalty every day of the week because his hand was in an unnatural position. Yeah, it just felt like one of those days. You start off with a 2-0 lead. It just feels like it's slipping away, and destiny didn't seem to be on Inter Miami's side. It was a lot of back and forth, and I thought there'd be at least a couple more goals in this game if Inter Miami was willing to go out and be a little bit more adventurous. It was very ironic that Columbus started playing their best football once they were down to 10 men, and Inter Miami just sort of bunkered down and tried to defend that lead. I'm a little bit on the fence about that decision, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it and how Tata Martino played it out, but that was very unlucky. And also, once Christoph got subbed in, I'm not sure if he was already on by this point in time, but that right-hand side with Ian Frey and Christoph got absolutely decimated in the last 20 minutes. It was the area that they were targeting to make their chances.
Okay, I'm going to go back and set the scene. They get a lucky goal because of a clearance that hits the bad ankle of Mo Farsi. They get a lucky goal for the second goal because of an unlucky Noah Allen handball. And then we get a third unlucky opportunity because of a Noah Allen penalty. And so Cucho Hernandez steps up to both equal Messi's goal output in this game, to stake his claim for the MVP, to get his team to survive in the Supporter Shield race, to put them in control of this game with 10 plus minutes left, to try and give them a win in this game. And instead, the hero is Drake Callender, who goes the right direction this time, makes a huge save. Captain Drake does it again. And basically, we're going to win from that point on. I know they dominated possession and we get a big number for stoppage time. But really, the last real opportunity they had was in the 99th minute. Dylan Chambeau fires a shot from outside the box, a relatively easy save for Drake Callender. And so from that moment on, for me at least, it felt like, oh no, Columbus is going to make this happen. The gods are going to work against us. And instead, Captain Drake said, no, I got this. And he's the one with the biggest moment in the second half. And Inter Miami completes the Supporter Shield chase with a 3-2 victory at Lower.com Field.
Phenomenal game. Phenomenal team performance by both teams. And Inter Miami came out winning this game by the skin of their teeth, but boy, did we do it well. That was a lot. Like, it was a roller coaster, up and down, all the way through, had me on the edge of my seat. I could not bear to watch Drake Callender save that penalty. I had to shut my eyes, and then I opened them again, and the Spanish commentators were saying something in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, and I thought they'd scored. They were so excited. I thought they'd scored. Turns out they hadn't. So very pleasantly surprised with that. I think next time, anytime Inter Miami has a penalty against them, I'm just gonna watch it with the Spanish commentary because that's more fun. Oh, phenomenal feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure we could have a 10-minute conversation about the difference between the English and Spanish broadcast. Certainly the atmosphere and intensity of the broadcast is different. Incredible game. It had everything you could want. Two great teams, guys that weren't ready for the moment, young players that were absolutely ready for the moment on both teams, huge performances from the biggest stars. Cucho was good, but then ultimately he was involved in the moment of the game. Lionel Messi stepped up. Luis Suárez played his role. Busquets was incredible. Alba was incredible. Alex Maitan was incredible. Mo Farsi was everywhere. And ultimately, it comes down to a few individual moments, and that's all that could separate these two teams, because I agree with you. The run of play was consistently even. And yet, in the biggest moments, on the penalties, biggest saves, and free kick opportunities where you have it in the box, but you have to be first to the ball, the little moments went Inter Miami's way, and I think Inter Miami deserved them, and they come away with a 3-2 win. Incredible game. A great performance from Inter Miami. We'll do awards later. We'll talk about individual performances, but I think it's hard to complain much about this game. And then, again, just the environment, the atmosphere, the buildup, the quality of both teams, what the crew put out there in terms of a stadium environment. everything was so fun about this game. And the fact that Inter Miami goes in there and wins a trophy and does it against this team that has done so much talking about Inter Miami. What a great feeling. I don't know about you, but I did not sleep much last night because I was just up watching people react to this game because I was just so into it. And yeah, as Sean says, Drake wins us another trophy. It is his second trophy winning penalty save of his career. Congratulations to Drake, to Messi, to Ian Frey, to everyone on that team and everyone that's been a part of this journey this season, because it has been a team effort and it culminated in not just winning the Supporter Shield, but doing it in dramatic, exciting, amazing fashion. And so I loved every minute of it. And I think I can stop talking about it now because it was perfect.
Yeah, you didn't get much sleep last night. I didn't sleep well last night because I had to take a 15-minute power nap before this podcast to even get me in the right energy space. I was drained this entire day just because it was such a intense 90-minute watch to see these teams play. What can we say, man? Drake Callender that save was phenomenal. It was decisive. It was phenomenal. And he stepped up in the moment that he needed to. And I don't think anybody can question now how good of a goalkeeper he is. I'm sure we're going to talk about him later as well. But overall, this is exactly how we wanted the game to go. If Columbus did score that one goal, and if it was 3-3, I would still have been very proud of the boys for playing the way that they did. It was not an easy game by any means. We had to go away from home and put that kind of performance on. And that's not an easy thing to do in the MLS. I forgive them for every single draw that they've had over the last 3 games we played. Every moment of madness that Tata Martino had over the last 2, 3, 7 games. Every issue that we faced with this team, it all goes away because this is exactly what we needed. It has been a long journey. Sometimes it's been very up. It didn't start well. It was good against RSL, good performance, a lot to build on. And then it got really good against Orlando. That victory was phenomenal, 5-0. Got very against New York Red Bulls, where everyone was drenched in the rain, absolutely dying. Jordi Alba's face will never leave my memory. And then Messi being injured for a lot of the season. I sent you the stat, and I don't know if we have this in the talking points, but Inter Miami with Messi and Inter Miami without Messi is exactly the same points per game, basically. 2.12 without Messi and 2.13 with Messi. 2.13 without Messi and 2.12 with Messi. So we're just that fraction better in terms of getting points when Messi is not even there. So this wasn't just a season about our superstar player dragging us through the mud and taking us to the Supporter Shield. This was a team effort. Every
Absolutely.
single player, whether they're from the young academy, whether they're the veterans, whether they've been on this team since the start, had a role to play throughout the season. And that's culminated into this Supporter Shield victory. And that's just a validation of how good this team is, how good the depth of this team is. And this is just the start, man. This is the first step towards greatness. The playoffs are more important. They're going to come thick. They're going to come fast. And we're going to have to be ready for it. But there's no better way to go into that than with a sense of confidence and self-belief that, yes, we can beat the best teams in the MLS because there's nobody better than us.
Yeah. And, so many performances you didn't even mention there. Robert Taylor at Vancouver, Leo Alfonso with the winner at Philadelphia, Leo Campana with the winner against DC. So many games, so many players in this roster that directly contributed to this Shield win. We'll probably do a podcast in at some point in the offseason about the best moments that led to this. But keeping it about this game, an excellent question in the chat. What was the biggest moment of this game for you?
The Drake penalty save has to be, right? If that didn't happen,
It's
you
that
don't get,
or the Messi. Is that or the Messi free kick?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm inclined to say the Drake penalty save just because it had the direct effect of not letting Columbus score and equalize, because that could have changed the nature of the game completely. But without the Messi free kick, we wouldn't be anywhere. So it's a very interesting question and a lot of good options to pick from throughout the game, actually.
Okay, normally we would spend a few minutes talking about the opposition team because I thought Columbus was really good. And aside from Rudy Camacho, I thought they had 10 guys that were ready to play that game. And they played well. They moved the ball through the midfield. I thought what Wilfred Nancy did in terms of setting this team up and having Alex Maton as one of those dual sixes was intriguing, and I thought it helped them. And so they did a lot right in this game, and it really did come down to just the elite levels of talent outshining for Inter Miami, especially in the biggest moments. There was a moment right after Camacho gets sent off, and Wilfred Nancy goes to his little tactics board. Yeah,
I
and
was going to bring up the
I was
exact
watching
same
that.
moment. I was like, oh, this is going
No,
to
but
get serious.
I was just like, I love this because you can tell he's a diehard and he knows like his team's not out of this. 10 men, we can go win this game, no problem. We still have it in us. He's moving the chips around. He's trying to figure out exactly what it's going to be. And so, being nervous or whatever, it's just I think goes to my respect for them, that organization, and that team, and especially Wilfred Nancy, because even in those harshest of moments, it's just about how do we fix this? How do we get the next step going? Let's fix it now. And he brings on a few subs later, and the game does change in a way that has them with sustained possession and trying to probe and find the equalizer.
Yeah, there are not many teams in the MLS that can go down to 10 men and put on a performance like that, maybe even better than they played with 11 men. That setup, whatever he had, I didn't even have the memory to remember what they were playing at that point. But they had a lot of attackers in the field at that one point. The natural instinct is to put on a couple more defenders to make sure you don't concede, but then allow the players who are already in the game state to go out and try and get that next goal. He didn't stop. He pushed his players forward, and it was so admirable seeing Columbus actually go for that win because they had opportunities. They didn't necessarily have direct opportunities in front of goal as much as they would have liked, perhaps, but they were in the final third. They were bombing down those flanks. Some of their players, Farsi was everywhere, man. He was playing really, really well. Austin was everywhere. The front men were fantastic. Cucho Hernandez had a really close, brilliant shot that was very close towards the end from that right hand side. As I mentioned, Ian Frey and Chris Saul were getting rinsed on that right hand side, and it was almost scary to see them play that well with 10 men. But absolute testament to what a machine this organization is as a whole. And Columbus were very, very good. I will say, you said 10 players, I'll say 9 players because I don't think Patrick Schulte had a brilliant game. He had a few errors in him, so it wasn't best for him. But yeah,
Fair.
it was a very, very good game from Columbus, and on any other day they get something out of it.
It's possible that he did have a good game. It's just when you compare him to our goalkeeper, he looks bad by comparison. I think that's how I'm going to view it. Yeah, listen, we could easily see this team again in the conference finals. And if you thought last night was a big moment, that will be even crazier. But of course, it will be at Chase Stadium. Maybe we can leave that discussion to if and when it happens, because we'll do the pregame show and we'll have a big hoopla leading up to that game. So maybe we can leave Columbus there for now and see if they can reach us again moving forward. I want to talk about Inter Miami because they did a lot in this game that I think is worth analyzing. And we like to be more involved in the tactics and get into the nitty gritty. And there was a lot of intrigue that went into this game, and I don't want that to get lost in the excitement of the moment and the enormity of the moment, and then, of course, the excitement and jubilation of winning the Supporters' Shield. They came out to play. Even though they were a little slow in the first 20 minutes, they came out to play. They tried to run through the midfield. They tried to play out wide. They really were trying to be expansive and possessive. And even though they were facing a good team that also could match up, that was also very good in the midfield, I thought Alex Maton was brilliant. I thought Arfstead was really good. Like you mentioned, Mo Farsi. They went out to win this game and to try and control the game. Unlike the previous 2 times against Columbus, where we had a little bit of high pressing early, get a few goals, and then sit back real deep and just try and hold off. And so for the first 60 minutes up until the red card, that's not what Inter Miami did. And I was really happy to see that, because I think you had to know if you could do it or not against this Columbus crew. Not only did they try it, but they did it. And so I think moving forward, you got to feel really good about that.
Yeah, the formation was definitely different from what we played in the last 4 games. It wasn't a 4-4-2 this time around. It was a 3-4-3. Messi was not the partner to Suarez up top. He was playing out wide quite a lot, actually. Obviously, drifting around a bit, but it was definitely a 3-4-3 in the build up. Sometimes back five when we were defending a little bit, but we were very expansive. Sergio Busquets was that central centre back who was building out from the back. Ian Frey had the license to go out, dribble forward, take the ball, carry the ball. Noah Allen was also out wide, moving out ahead quite a few times. Jordi Alba was pushed up. Chelo Wigan was pushed up. We were definitely going at them this game. We didn't plan to sit back in a back five, didn't plan to defend too much. So, in the setup, I'm not sure if I completely agree with how well the setup was, but it did work to a large extent.
Well, he did take lessons from the previous 2 games and applied them appropriately. He had the same back three that he had in the previous matchups, maybe not the same personnel, but the same style, so that he didn't get outnumbered. What Columbus does so well when going up against a back four is that trio in the front, whether it's Hernandez, Cucho, and Rossi, or it's Jason Russell Rowe, or it's Chambos or Azriel Jackson or whatever. They do such a good job of interchanging to confuse the back two, and then they overwhelm them with numbers. And Miami Tata decided, we're not going to let you do that because we're just going to match you man for man. And that is the 3rd time this season they've done it. And for large portions of all 3 games, they have stifled this front three and not allowed them to get free and open like they've done so much this season against other teams. The other thing that I thought was interesting in this game is Busquets had the license to go into and back out of the midfield. So much when he's been a center back, he's been glued to that back line. In this game, he had more freedom than I thought than ever to get into that midfield, try and find the game both in and out of possession if he felt it was called for. And I want Busquets to have that freedom. I want Busquets to know if the game needs me in the midfield, I can go there. If the game needs me in the back line, I can go there because he's so smart. He's going to figure out exactly what we need. So I loved him having that freedom. You mentioned
And it wasn't just Busquets who had the freedom. Of course, Busquets was definitely the most visible and effective in doing that. But I thought there was a little bit of fluidity in that back line, allowing Noah Allen and Ian Frey to push out when they saw the opportunity as well, which I thought was very well covered by someone like Yannick Bright, Chelo Wigan, to Jordi Alba at times as well, where they would just cover for that position in case there was a gap. So there wasn't this rigidity in the back line that said, okay, you have to stick to that 3-man position and not move out from there. If there's an opportunity, if there's space, it felt like the instructions were go out and get that space, run into the space, be as expansive as you can when playing with the ball. So I thought that was a very, very positive development.
No, you're absolutely right. Noah Allen had some overlapping runs down that left side a couple times, and then Ian Frey. Listen, I don't know if Ian Frey has the license or freedom from Tata, but sometimes he just gets on the ball and says, "I'm doing this." So you guys just figure out what you're going to do behind me because this is happening right now, and I love that from Ian Frey. And then the other thing I thought was really important, and I think I've come to this conclusion, is Tata knows that if you can take Darlington Nagbe out of the game, you're going to be so much better and more effective in the midfield. He had Darlington Nagbe in Atlanta, so he knows this player very well. And every time in the pregame show, we talk about how good Darlington Nagbe is, how good of a midfielder he is. And it never really shows up in the games against Miami. But that's because we have someone locked to him like glue. The first 2 times it was Yannick Bright. Last night it was Federico Redondo, who was on him consistently, harassing him and taking him out of the game in a way that I think really disrupts what Columbus wants to do. You put more pressure on their back line to be responsible for possession, which is not that they're bad at it, but it's not how you want to play if you're Columbus. You want to play through those dual sixes. And so if you can take Darlington Nagbe out of the game, which we've now done 3 times in a row, this is what Tata sees as the key to beating this Columbus attack by disrupting them in the midfield. And so I love that. Again, I thought Redondo did a good job of that. In other ways, I'm not sure about Redondo's performance, but his brightest and most important job was to harass Darlington Nagbe. And again, I think for the 3rd time in a row, Wilfred Nancy has said, I got to take Nagbe out because he just can't find the game. And that's a credit to our midfielders who are consistently up on and pressing him high and tight. The front three, though, I think really struggled to find the game at times early on. Messi had a few balls that came to him where he had a defender on his back, and so he didn't really have time and space to collect it appropriately. That I think comes more to him being given a bad pass that maybe he shouldn't be receiving, but there's just too much faith in Messi. I thought the team did a good job of cutting that out after the first 20 minutes, and that allowed Messi to sort of sneak in and out of the game where that back line was not so focused on him. He was able to find ways to be effective. Diego Gómez on that left side in attack, I don't know. He was fine. He was good. He was solid. There was a moment where Messi tries to push the ball wide to Jordi Alba, but Diego Gómez is sort of in the way and he collects it and he has no idea what to do because he's not really that traditional winger where, you know, if you're Robert Taylor, you take a step on your right and you fire, you take a step to your left and hit the cross. And he's just not comfortable in that position. So I don't know, but he had a good game. He was everywhere in terms of pressing. He was a physical beast like he always is. And so no complaints there. But I just thought the setup was really good for this game. And it's something you can see carrying forward against really good teams as we move into, you know, playoff mode.
Yeah, there are a couple of points and threads I want to pick up from there. So I think the front line, all three of them were good, but they were not amazing. Of course, Lionel Messi had those moments. He was fantastic. Had some really, really positive moments and runs towards the end of the game as well, where he cut the Columbus left-hand side to pieces. I thought he was really good. Overall, fantastic game. But they weren't like amazing or the ones who were making things happen. I thought the backline played really well in terms of defending the runs in behind them. This Columbus Crew front line is very, very dangerous. So to have someone like Noah Allen and Ian Frey, who are not necessarily that experienced, go up against some of these veterans, I thought worked really well in terms of having that Sergio Busquets central man in the middle of the centre-back partnership and those two cutting off anything coming in behind Sergio Busquets. So if Columbus is able to get in behind Sergio Busquets, you have Ian Frey and Noah Allen sweeping out everything that's happening in behind him. So I thought that worked really well. The midfield, Yannick Bright started off a little bit sloppy, had a couple of off passes here and there. Phenomenal as he grew into the game. Absolutely phenomenal. Sure, we're going to talk about him later. Redondo, yesterday when I watched first, I wasn't convinced. I thought he was the worst player on the pitch, if you can say so. And then I rewatched the game and I was very conscious of constantly watching what Redondo was doing. He wasn't phenomenal, but he had to do a very thankless job yesterday. His job was not to be that creator, to pass the ball around and to create those line-breaking passes and, you know, get the offense rolling. His job was stick to Darlington Nagbe and be that physical menace in the midfield. And for 99% of the game, he did his job really, really well. He made it very difficult for Darlington Nagbe to get into the game. And you've already mentioned this, so I'm not going to elaborate further. So in that sense, I thought he had a really good game. Overall, with regards to the structure, I'm not fully convinced. I don't think it was perfect by any means, but it definitely worked. It worked to large parts. There were issues of Columbus breaking in and behind and us leaving too much space in the flanks where they could potentially exploit us, especially in the second half when they had some of their faster wingers come in. And that's where we conceded both those penalties from the flanks because they were bombing down those flanks and wide channels and putting those balls in. So that was an issue that we definitely had with the setup. And I would always go with a three-man midfield. I would never go with the two-man midfield. So that 3-4-3 sort of confuses me a little bit. I also think there are too many people in the wide channel sometimes, but that's being too nitpicky.
Well, I think that's why I like Busquets having the freedom to get into the midfield if he feels like it's called upon. And he hasn't really had that before. And so that's why I like this more than what we've seen before, is because you can have the three-man midfield if the game dictates it that we need it, because Busquets has that freedom. And so to me, that was sort of why I don't really have the complaints there. Again, Redondo, I don't know, but I'd still love to see Gómez in that role instead, because I just think he's a beast there. Should we talk about after the red card, though? Because everything sort of changes. Columbus brings on a few substitutes to get some fresh legs. Miami does bring on David Ruiz, and I thought that was a very clear and obvious signal of intent on what they wanted to do for the last 25 minutes of the game, and that's to kill it. And so Inter Miami goes from this 3-4-3, expansive, trying to play with the ball, without the ball, being comfortable in every situation, and I thought played really well, and not in a way that was going to exhaust them like maybe they did the last time we played Columbus, but in a controlled way. And then we went back and sat behind the ball and just sat in a low block. And we did, and it was the substitutes, the personnel dictated that we did this. We bring in David Ruiz for Redondo, who I thought was exhausted, and I didn't think was having a great game, actually, even though he did do the dirty work on Nagbe. And that's why Columbus looked a lot better from that point on, is because we were saying you can have the ball and we'll try maybe and hit you on the counter and try and get a nick a goal to put the game away. But really, we're going to make sure that we control our penalty box so that you can't score the goal that costs us points. And obviously, when you see Christoph come in, Cello comes out. Both Cello and Redondo had yellow cards, so I think those make sense. Ian Frey goes to right back. I don't want to criticize Christoph and Frey too much, because they had better possession and control of the game when they were down to 10 men than at any other point in the game. And so those runners coming free, I think, was more a symptom of them feeling comfortable, and not just comfortable, but pressured to get high up the pitch in order to create offense. That's where that came from, not poor performances from the players that were on the pitch.
No, I don't think so. You can't ask. Okay, I was going to go with a metaphor, but I don't know how that fits there. You couldn't have asked Sergio Busquets, Christoph and Ian Frey to play a high line against someone who's that pacey on that side. Gucho Hernandez was using that left-hand side. Austin was using that left-hand side.
It's not even a high line. It's just controlling the ball, because we didn't really control the ball much in the last 30 minutes.
And the intent was to sit back. Yeah, the intent was to sit back. So they were absorbing the pressure, and let's be honest, they weren't able to keep up with some of the pace. Ian Frey was shattered by the end of it. He was exhausted as well. You could see he was struggling to run and keep up with some of the pace that Columbus was offering. Columbus really had some good attacking options, man. We saw that against the 3-2 defeat when we had against them at their home stadium in the Leagues Cup, where we were 2-0 up. They scored 3 goals because they have so many players off the bench who can make a difference. And when you have starter quality players coming off the bench who are pacey, good with the ball, and goal threatening, it's very difficult to keep up with them. We didn't have too many options defensively. You mentioned this when we were discussing the lineups and the bench strength, and we didn't have any defensive options. So I thought it was a smart decision to go and sit back a little bit, just because we didn't have too many reinforcements available to us. And honestly, Columbus didn't have too many shots in front of goal. A couple of opportunities, a couple of tame shots that Drake Callender saved. But overall, we absorbed the pressure well, and we did it fine, I think.
No, like I said when we were doing the recap, I thought that 34th minute opportunity for Christian Ramirez was really their cleanest, clearest opportunity that they sort of put together. Inter Miami was deep, and they were controlling the box, I thought, and I thought they did it well. And if it wasn't for those handballs that are, sort of unlucky, we would have come away feeling like we kind of ran this game. I think that's the impression we would have had this morning if the handballs and the penalties didn't keep it close. But is that the right strategy, though?
I don't think so. Because as you saw yesterday, we conceded a couple of penalties by sitting back and absorbing the pressure. Those penalties, one got converted, the other didn't. If the other got converted as well, this would be a completely different conversation. We would be having a conversation about why Tata Martino decided to sit back against 10 men. I thought he should have brought on Campana, maybe even Benham and Kramaski, players who can press and win the ball high up, because by doing that, you automatically take away some of the pressure that the back line is starting to absorb. If you can win the ball high up, you don't have to sit back yourself. That's a very simple, basic rule.
Well, and not just win it high up, not just win it high up, but control possession.
Yeah, and make some opportunities, because they're one man down. So you're going to have that one extra person at all times on the pitch. If there's someone like Campana who's free, you can pop the ball into him. He can have a free run at the goalkeeper. You create those opportunities by having more robust legs on the field rather than absorbing, sitting back and taking the pressure. So I don't think it was the right decision overall, but it worked out for us. So not going to complain too much.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about the decision to go defensive, especially on the road. Maybe if you're in front of your home fans and you have the environment on your side, I can see wanting to be more expansive. This is what Tata does. What I will say is I don't think he committed enough to it. You mentioned Campana coming on. When you're sitting with 8 guys behind the ball, or I guess 8 guys behind the ball, and Messi and Suárez are up there, neither of them have the pace or really the ball skills to control the ball 4-on-1, right? Like they're going to lose the ball. You're not actually going to have sustained possession with them up there. So you're just hoping for a long ball that leads to an opportunity, but neither of them are fast enough, again, to beat guys 3 or 4-on-1. And I know Messi did have a nice play in like the 96th minute where he did actually beat them 3-on-1. But
your thesis is disproven.
Yeah. But certainly with Suárez, you can't do that. And so to me, it made a lot more sense to bring on Campana for Suárez, knowing that you're not trying to get the last goal, you're trying to defend. And then there was a lot of set pieces, corners in the final few minutes for Columbus. Campana's a much better set piece guy. He is more athletic than Suárez. So even if you do get a ball going the other way, he's much more likely to beat the defense going the other way. So I thought it was a lack of commitment to the defense that kind of made me nervous. As you mentioned, Kramaski, a guy that also could have come on and just been a body. And then the other thing I want to say is Messi and Suárez sit at the midway line when everyone else is defending in a low block and just trying to dominate the box. They should be at the edge of the final third. Even if they're walking around, even if they're just sort of visioning, they're not going to beat anyone from the halfway line for pace. They're just not going to do it, especially not Suárez.
Offside, though. They're going to be offside if they're that far up.
Well, not if they're on their own side of half the pitch. But
you mean
they're not going to be
okay? Yeah,
they're not going. No, sorry. They should be in sort of the edge of our own final third,
box.
because at least then they're a body in the way, not the box, but the final third. They're a body in the way to make it more difficult for build-up play to occur effectively for Columbus. I just think they need to be a little bit deeper, even if they're walking around. They're not going to beat anyone going the other way. So I don't know about how I feel about that, but
man,
certainly
at this point, I'm just happy that Tata Martino made some subs. Let's be honest. The fact that he put new, fresh legs on the pitch, and some of them may have actually been forced because Redondo had a yellow card and Wigan had a yellow card. So I don't trust that man. I don't know what he would have done if we were actually losing the game. So let's not even go there. Let's be thankful that he did what he had to do and got the result.
Well, the other thing I'll say is he made the defensive adjustments, but he also left himself a substitution window and a few subs so that if Columbus does get the equalizer, like Cucho, let's say he gets the third goal, he does still have Matías Rojas and Gressel and Campana and Robert Taylor and Kramaski. He has options and subs and a window in order to make the more offensive transition. And so it was when he brought on Rojas and he no longer had sort of the option to make an offensive sub later on because he used all his windows. That's when I thought he should have brought on Campana and really committed to the defense. But that's really my only nitpick for this game. Is there anything else about this game you wanted to get through? We're going to, I'm sure, talk a lot about what this performance means for our playoff chances as we get closer to the playoffs. We're going to have 2 weeks off for the international window. So we'll have time to talk about all those things, but just keeping it about this game. Is there any other moment or thing you wanted to bring up before we get to awards?
No, I think there was a lot of good things happening, and it's time to now appreciate some of our players for how well they performed, because I'm sure we're going to discuss some of their moments as well.
Okay, guys, on this show, we give out 6 awards after every game: a man of the match, a heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. And I think for a special game like this, you have to give some special awards. So, Saur, I hope you brought it today with your awards. You went first over the weekend, so it is my turn to go first, and I will be giving the man of the match to Lionel Messi because, of course, it's Lionel Messi. Drake Counter may have had the best moment of the game with the penalty save, but in terms of taking an even game and making it not even, that was Lionel Messi. You saw the chirps about him winning the MVP as soon as he got that second goal. I still think that's on the table for him. He's second in the MLS in goal contributions. The numbers are impossible to argue with. I talked about this after his first game back against Philadelphia, that he's going to win the MVP. I still think it's right there for him, even after a couple sort of non-dominating performances over the last couple games where Inter Miami had a few draws and the vibes weren't quite as good. But in the biggest moment, in the biggest game, and again, the commentator said biggest game in years in the regular season, who steps up but the star? Lionel Messi, man of the match, no doubt in my mind. 2 goals, 2 beautiful goals. And it's just an amazing thing to have him on our team, man, honestly.
We needed him yesterday more than people might think about, because the teams were evenly matched and he was one of the biggest differences for us, for our team. He's phenomenal. I don't think we can say anything other than that about him.
He really is.
He is phenomenal. That free kick, I think we're too used to seeing him score those spectacular goals, because that free kick was no joke. Haaland and Mbappe in their careers, can you guess how many combined free kick goals they have?
No, I can't.
0. Can you guess how many free kick goals Lionel Messi has in his career?
Like 75.
66. 66 to 0 for 2 of the greats, like 2 of the best players at this point in time in this generation. It's insane how he does that. And he's phenomenal at that. But then let's talk about his quality in front of goal and how he can flip the switch in a second. Yes, he's deteriorating. He's getting older. He may be slower. He may not be as sharp as he used to be. But even Lionel Messi at 60% is better than 99.9% of footballers out there. He was phenomenal yesterday. He was the difference maker. We needed him. And in the moments that we did, he brought this team up from nothing. So this season would not have been possible without him. But as we've proven, we were able to sustain when he wasn't there, just so that when he was there to lift the trophy, he was able to bring this team home. So phenomenal game from him. I completely agree. Should be man of the match.
Can we have an MVP discussion real quick? Because the phraseology of most valuable player is intentionally up to interpretation so that you can apply it to however you see fit. And so my opinion is that people are going to decide who they want to be the MVP, and then they're going to morph the phrase or the definition of MVP in order to fit whoever they feel is the most valuable player. But if you want to talk about who's the most valuable player in the league, to the league, it's Lionel Messi. If you want to talk about who's the best player in the league, it's Lionel Messi. If you want to talk about who's the most productive player in the league, he's the second most productive player. I think Evander has him beat by like 1. But on a per game basis, it's definitely Lionel Messi. And so I get you can make all these excuses about games played or whatever. And if you don't want to give it to Messi, you can find an excuse not to. And whoever the voters are, you know, we'll see what they actually come up with. But I'm not going to disparage anyone for saying it should be Evander, it should be Cucho Hernandez, it should be Christian Benteke for being the goal scoring leader. I won't disparage anyone for saying it shouldn't be Messi, but the reasons it should be Messi are clear. They are obvious. And I don't think anyone should disparage anyone for saying it's Lionel Messi, because he's the best player, man.
Yeah, definitely a conversation to be had. And that could actually be sealed into finality after the next 2 games. So you never know, man. You never know. This conversation might not even be a debate by the end of it.
No, but and the biggest moments are the ones that matter most, right? And so if you want to talk about what was the biggest early season matchup when Orlando City was the favorite to win the Supporters Shield, Miami versus Orlando. Who showed up huge there? Late season, biggest game of the year, biggest game at the end of the season, Inter Miami versus Columbus. Who showed up there? So in the biggest moments, Lionel Messi has been the man. He had the super clutch goal against the LA Galaxy early on. I mean, so many huge moments, but I really do think he's going to win the MVP. And I think these next 2 games are going to be an opportunity for him to get 2-3 more goal contributions and actually put himself at the top. And I think it's going to be really hard to argue against him. Okay, our second award is the Heron That Flew North. And this is our award that we normally give for the player who was doing the wrong thing. Florida Herons, they don't fly anywhere for the winter. So if you catch one flying north, they are doing the wrong thing. And in the spirit of that fact, we give this award every game to the player who was doing the wrong thing. Now, I'm going to offer you the chance to make this decision because I think I'm okay with a trophy winning exception to the Heron That Flew North. It is your award to give tonight. So if you want to back out from giving a Heron That Flew North and give a trophy winning exception, I will allow it. If not, tell me who wins the Heron That Flew North.
You know what? I do have a couple of players in mind that may be eligible for this award, but I feel like while they might have been slightly drifting away from the rest of the Heron group, someone called them back and then they flew back into the right direction. So I feel like at the end of the day, yesterday's game was a complete team effort. Every single person in that pitch, all 11 players, did exactly what they were supposed to do. And it'll be a disservice to their achievement yesterday to go out and win against one of the best teams in the league at their home ground to say that there was one poor performance. Yes, maybe an argument to be made about that, but I think it's going to be a disservice. So this time around, I'm going to take that exception and I'm not going to give this award to anybody. Maybe Taylor Twellman, but he's not a Heron. So I think I'm going to call that exception. And every one of those players was brilliant yesterday and deserves to be recognized for that.
Okay, but it was right. No,
Yeah,
just kidding. No, I think that's fair. And I think when you have in a moment like this, there's no reason to dwell on the negatives because it was a team effort and there was no one, especially in last night's game, no one was so poor that it demanded to be talked
exactly.
about. So trophy exemption, I will acknowledge for this one, which brings us to our first individual award. And because you just got skipped, I'm giving out the MITM award. 2 minutes ago, I gave out the MOTM award, the man of the match. Now I'm giving out the MITM, the monster in the midfield award.
I've got a better award for him, man. It's Yannick Bright, of course.
Of course.
Has to be.
What a superstar. He's awesome, man. He's so good. And you mentioned he was a little sloppy in the first half. I don't even agree with that. I thought he was so good.
First like 5-10 minutes. Not the first half, 5-10 minutes, maybe.
I think you're thinking of Redondo, man, because Yannick Bright was bold and daring. And the theme of the rest of this episode is fearlessness from our young players. And he was fearless, man. He was so good on the ball. Defensively, he did what he always does, getting forward, getting out of trouble, getting out of pressure, covering for Busquets when Busquets moves into the midfield, covering for Noah Allen when Noah Allen gets forward. I mean, he is such a smart player. He's good on the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over. Under pressure, he had a couple opportunities where he played his way out of pressure. He was awesome last night. I thought this was his best performance in quite some time. He is another player that keeps getting better. And I'll say this also. We talk about sort of old players rubbing off on young players, but I don't think there's a young player on our team that has stylized or taken things from the veteran at their position more than Yannick Bright, because he's starting to play those Sergio Busquets passes or getting out of trouble, man. He is so good, and I thought last night he was an absolute monster. He was in a midfield that include a really good Alex Maitan performance, a Darlington Nagbe, who's one of the best midfielders of all time in this league. Sergio Busquets was in there and out of there. Federico Redondo, one of the biggest, most extensive U22s ever in this league. Yannick Bright was the baller in the midfield. No, sorry. He was the monster in the midfield. Incredible performance and just so proud.
I had a better award for him. My award for him was the Hearts of the Octopus award, because an octopus doesn't have one heart. He doesn't have two hearts. They have three hearts. And that's how he played yesterday. You mentioned the term fearless. He played as though he had three hearts on his chest, and he just did not care about who was against him, who he was playing with. It was a matter of playing under the floodlights on the biggest occasion with some of the biggest players in the game of football, and he was shining bright, no pun intended. he has come leaps and bounds since that first game we watched in the preseason, where you and I were like, ooh, this player might have something to offer this team this season. He didn't just have something to offer this team, he's now a staple starter for this team. Can you believe that? This is his first season for Inter Miami, and he's come such a long way to the point that I think he's undroppable. Yesterday's performance was
absolutely undroppable.
Yesterday's performance was even better for me because, as you mentioned, there wasn't just, I don't think he was playing that interceptor role, that destructor role where he's just going and menacing everybody in the midfield and trying to win the ball. Yes, he did a lot of that. He was very much the defensive midfielder in that midfield trio or duo. But you mentioned there were certain instances where he was surrounded by three players. He would take a shimmy here, move there, and then out of pressure. Played a ball pass out to Suárez, which was brilliant, got us out of pressure immediately, which was turning his body in such confidence manner, really good on the ball. That was the one thing that stood out for me yesterday was he was very good on the ball and he was coming for the ball. He was not shying away. The occasion did not get the better of him. Didn't seem like he had any nerves at all. He just plays on this cruise control, coasting motion where you just feel like, damn, this player he's just going and going and going. And brilliant, man. Absolutely brilliant. I thought he was phenomenal in that midfield yesterday. Phenomenal.
I agree, man. He was the best midfielder on the pitch. And we did a lot of talking about Yannick Bright a couple months ago as he was breaking into this team. But I think, and he was lovely enough to come on the show, but I think we've toned it down a little bit because our expectations are just so high of him now that in order to get an award, he sort of has to do something that exceeds our expectations, which is very difficult. And this performance, even as high as our expectations have gotten of him, this still exceeded that. And Rudy Camacho, a veteran, the moment was too big for him last night. And I thought the same of Redondo as a young player who had some early bad turnovers. The moment seemed a little too big for him. But Yannick Bright, young player, the moment was not too big for him. In fact, he feels like he stepped up to the moment. And again, what a performance. I was blown away, man. He was so good.
All right, my turn. Now that you've stolen one of my awards, I'm going to go with the Don't Forget Your Passport Award.
I'm afraid you're going to steal my next award with this one. So I'm going to guess someone else. I'm going to guess someone else. Diego Gómez.
Nah.
Oh, I'm scared now. Whose award did you steal? Drake Calendar. Absolutely deserving, man. There was a lot of talk in the chat earlier that Schulte got called in over Drake Calendar. And I will just tell you, in USMNT circles, there's a big call for Patrick Schulte to start for the USMNT over the next 2 weeks during the international window because there's not a lot of trust in Matt Turner. There's not a lot of trust in Ethan Horvath and Zach Steffen. Definitely not a lot of trust. So as a young player that's emerging and new on the scene, Schulte's a guy that they want to get to start. Drake Calendar was way better last night.
Occasion too big for Schulte, man. You mentioned a couple of players in Camacho and Redondo. The third player was Patrick Schulte. He had a very difficult game. And on the other side of the pitch, Drake Calendar was unafraid, fearless, dominant. We've talked about this new sort of style that he's picked up where he's commanding his box a lot better, coming out for the balls a lot better. But yesterday he did what he was supposed to do, and that's save a goal. He saved that penalty. After conceding one penalty before that, he had that in his head that he has to go up against Cucho Hernandez again, and he wasn't afraid. He just did what he had to do. He was the decisive person in this game, if you think about it in terms of moments. And Captain Drake, man, what an absolute beast of a performance yesterday. Must be so good to feel that way because it can give him so much confidence going into the playoffs where saving penalties might actually be a major thing. I thought he had a phenomenal performance yesterday, a lot like every other player on the pitch, but he stood out, made the moment his own, and just came out with flying colors to the point that he may need to pack his passport if Mauricio Pochettino is serious about the USMNT. He deserves a chance. He definitely deserves a chance, and there needs to be a conversation about Drake Callender being part of that conversation.
I was watching Champions League over the last couple of days, watching Europa League today, Premier League over the weekend. There are goalkeepers that can't do what Drake Callender can do in terms of being a shot stopper. And so he I don't even want to talk about him progressing to another club because I just want him to stay with us forever. Do you think Messi's going to start on Saturday? This is relevant.
I don't think so.
If Messi doesn't start and captain both the Saturday and the final game at New England, then Drake Callender will go down as this team's captain for having captained the most games this season. And so for Captain Drake to put a final stamp on a trophy supporter shield winning season, I thought was entirely appropriate, and I'm very happy for him. And he's awesome, man. He's awesome.
All right.
Okay, my second award is the Helium Award.
The Helium Award?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope this is not going where I think this is going, because helium can be a few things. Helium fills up a balloon, and the balloon can fly away. Does this award go to Noah Allen?
What makes you say Noah Allen?
I don't know. He was full of air yesterday to the point that he looked big on the pitch. I don't know.
Okay, so in some sports, when you are talking about draft prospects, when you're talking about young and up-and-coming players, you can use the phrase they have, like they're a helium prospect or they have helium in terms of their draft stock. And as you mentioned with balloons, if you just blow into a balloon, it'll just fall on the floor. But if you put helium in the balloon, all it does is rise and fly away. And that is exactly what's happening to the stock of Ian Frey, who is so unbelievably talented. I have loved this player since we got to see him for the first extended period of time last summer. He is so good. He's so calm on the ball, but most importantly, he's fearless. He has so many tools. He's an X factor going forward. I want him to start every game. And we talk about Yannick Bright being undroppable, but what Ian Frey gives you as a player going forward, I think is so valuable to this team being a juggernaut going forward. And so Ian Frey, a player who has all the tools you could ever want from a defensive player, his stock is going way up because he is unbelievable. And he's even better in the biggest moments, right? He scored against Columbus back in July or June. And in this performance, again, just those fearless runs in the heart of that midfield. And he's just like, I got this. Don't worry about it. I got this. Awesome player, man. I love Ian Frey.
Yeah, before Cello came back from injury, when Ian Frey was starting, he was on another level after being a regular starter for this team. Since Cello's come back, he hasn't had too many opportunities, Ian Frey, and he's been okay. He's been good when given the opportunity, but today was by far his best performance since then. I think since the 2 goals that he scored when he came back from his injury to today, yesterday was the best performance I think he put on the pitch. Not just because of the way he played, again, was not consumed by the lights, did not get afraid of the occasion and who was in front of him, and especially the players that were playing against him. He had the composure, the calm, the ability to do exactly what he was supposed to do. Yes, a few hiccups here and there, which I don't want to blame him for because it wasn't necessarily his fault as such to concede that penalty. Phenomenal player. As soon as he rushed out with that ball in his feet and just dribbled past 1, 2, 3, 4, I had a huge smile on my face and I was like, man, this player deserves to play every single day for this team. He is great. I've used the word phenomenal way 2 times. Please give me another adjective because it's getting out of hand.
I'm doing the same with awesome, but he had a run in the first half, in the first 20 minutes when Inter Miami was sort of struggling to keep possession, where he was deep and he just decided, I'm going to take the ball up the right side, and he earns a foul, I believe, on Arfstead or potentially Cucho Hernandez, but he earns the foul, gets Inter Miami a breather. And it's like those little moments where he's like, I'm just going to take the ball forward and get us out of this trouble. It's really refined. I really like it. I have a hot take on this player. Yannick Bright. Is there bigger fans of Yannick Bright than you, me, and his parents?
No, I wouldn't even count his parents.
Diego Gómez going to the Premier League in January, completely deserved, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Benjamin Kramaski was ranked 44th best prospect in the world earlier this season and has been a U.S. men's national team player at 18 years old. Incredibly good young prospects. Federico Redondo, considered, a future Real Madrid, AC Milan type player. The pedigree's there, the transfer fee. Toto Avila's a huge transfer fee. Facundo Faria, similar. No player on this team, aside from Messi and Busquets and Suárez, right? Those guys. But none of the young players have a higher ceiling than Ian Frey. None of them have a better collection of tools. I don't know if he's going to reach the absolute peak of what he has the talent for, because the injury concerns might scare teams away from really investing in him. But my goodness, man, the more minutes this guy plays, the better he's going to get. And he has that youthful fearlessness that just is so fun to watch. I love this player. And
there's something about this
so
crop
good.
of players, and it has to do with their sense of confidence. And I see it in all three of them. I see it in Noah Allen, I see it in Yannick Bright, and I see it in Ian Frey. They're not afraid. They're so confident in their abilities, man. It's not easy playing with Lionel Messi and Sergio Busquets.
And Ruiz and Kramaski too. Like it's pervasive throughout this crop of young players. Yeah. Okay. Round us off with the last and final award.
The last and final award is the Kicked Out of the Nest award.
The Kicked Out of the Nest award.
No, it's not Robert Taylor.
The Kicked Out of the Nest award is Julian Gressel.
No. Julian Gressel didn't play yesterday. We don't give awards to players who didn't play yesterday.
I know. I was gonna give you some flack for giving it to him. It's going to Kicked Out of the Nest award. Is this like he's growing up? Oh, he grew up. He's being forced to fly. This is Noah Allen.
There you go. You figured it out. Eventually, I had to help.
Yeah, you did.
Noah Allen. He wasn't just asked to gently learn to fly a little bit from day 1 to day 7, and then on day 8 just fly out from his home to go explore the world. He came in at a time when we were suffering from injury crisis. He was pushed into deep end. He was asked to swim. It was either him floating or him drowning in the boots of some big players, filling up the role of Darwin Martinez in a position that people have criticized him for, because a lot of people told us that he can't play centre-back because he's too short, he's not ready for it, and he's better as either a left centre-back or a left-back. Yesterday he played as a left centre-back, I agree. But every time he's been on the pitch in the second half of the season, he has grown from strength to strength. And as soon as Tata Martino kicked him off the nest, he's just flown and flown and flown. And my goodness, I am so in awe of the player that he's turning out to be. I don't want to overhype him. I don't want to say he's going to be the best centre-back this league has ever seen, but he's growing really, really well. And I'm so happy with his professional development this season. He was nowhere in the starting 11 at the start of the season. None of us thought that he would be in the starting 11. Ian Frey, Yannick Bright were both prospects that we were really excited about. I can hold my hand up and say Noah Allen was not one of them. But he's surprised me, and how. Brilliant performance yesterday. He is doing so well. Long may it continue.
Yeah, I hope no one ever doubts this kid again, because he's going to grow into an absolute baller in this league. I still think it's going to be as a left back when Alba retires, but to be able to do what he's doing at center back is incredible. He has jumped the depth chart in a way that I don't think we thought was really possible. I'm going to talk about Sergei Kristoff in a minute, but he's ahead of Sergei Kristoff, no doubt about it. He's probably ahead of Ian Frey as a center back, if we're being honest. He's a very good chance he starts playoff games for this team.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd be confident if he does that. I wouldn't be too afraid to see him on the pitch. And circle the lineup. 6 months ago, Noah Allen might have been my first choice if he was in the starting 11. Now, not so much, man. Not so much.
Yeah, he's been awesome. And the last 3 games in particular, I feel like he's taken a step up.
Yeah.
We just gave awards to Messi, a trophy exemption, Yannick Bright, Drake Counter, Ian Frey, Noah Allen. Do you think those were the 5 best performances for Inter Miami?
Yeah, I would say so.
How
Jordi
cool is
Alba,
it?
perhaps.
You're right. Jordi Alba was good.
Sergio
And
Busquets
I
was
mean, there was a lot
phenomenal.
of good
Yeah,
performances,
yeah.
but in terms of the most exciting for us, we're talking about Lionel Messi, who's the greatest of all time. And we're talking about a bunch of young guys and Drake Calendar and homegrowns and draft picks and kids that grew up in Coconut Creek, 20 minutes from Jay Stadium. It is just a testament to the fact that we won the Supporters Shield, that here we are at the end of this recap talking about the academy prospects and the draft picks and the depths of this roster and everything that had to come together for this team to be where it is. And it's not just about Messi, Suárez, Busquets, and Alba. It's the entire roster that came together to accomplish this feat. And I love that for us. Sorry, Christoph, I want to thank you because I think last night was probably your last game for Inter Miami. And I think despite all of the criticism you've gotten, you've always been very professional about this. And I think you are a much better player than a lot of fans, imagine of you. And so if this is your last performance, I just want to give you a slow clap for that one because you came in and helped us win this Supporter Shield last night and were that man in defense when we needed you. So bravo to you and thank you for everything you've done for this club.
And he's had some good performances this season. He's stepped up at times where I didn't think he could, and he did a good job. So kudos to him, man.
Anyone else you want to talk about? Julian Gressel did not appear. Are we going to take anything? Are we going to take anything away from that moving forward into the playoffs? Not over these next 2 games.
No, I think he starts the next 2 games. I think he starts games that are against lesser oppositions. Yesterday just wasn't the game for him. I think it was not his style of game.
So when we talk about getting into that conference final against Columbus, maybe even the round before, if we have to play Orlando, who is scorching hot, and we have tried to avoid talking about it on this podcast, and then of course in the final, if we play the Galaxy or LAFC, I think we saw what Tata cares about in the final moments. I'm taking that away. For me, that's a takeaway. Matías Rojas, another guy who we thought maybe he should start after his last performance. He comes on late in the game, not the first sub, and doesn't have too much of an impact. Certainly not the style of game we were trying to play. So anything to take away from there?
No, I think it's just the style that Tata Martino had to play, the game state as well. We were 3-2 up, trying to hold a lead. So I think the idea was to be a little bit more defensive than offensive minded in our substitution. So that's probably why Matías Rojas wasn't brought on the pitch. If we needed to chase the game and get a goal, he would definitely have come on earlier. So I'm not reading too much into that.
Any other players you want to talk about?
I think that's about it. We've touched quite a lot of the players. So,
okay, let's talk about this upcoming game against Toronto for a minute or two. Do you have anything you're looking out for? Any expectations? Huge rotation. What are you looking forward to?
Just put the youngsters in the pitch and see what happens, man. I'm not too fussed. I want to get that points record, that's for sure. But avoid injuries, avoid too much. Avoid too much chaos. And I think we should be fine. Put on a good squad, but doesn't have to be a full strength squad. I think give the chance to some of the players who haven't played yet. I like to see Robert Taylor and Campana start perhaps, and some of the fringe players who haven't had the chances in the recent games.
So just for the record, both Redondo and Cello Wiegand are suspended because of yellow card accumulation. It's also my understanding that Bernardeschi got a red card, so he'll be suspended. Toronto's best player, and their second best player, Insigne, I believe, came off with an injury in this game, so he might not play either. So considering they're without their firepower, even Inter Miami, with all the stars on the bench, still are going to have an excellent opportunity to go into Toronto and complete this Canadian sweep, which we've been talking about, and I am still convinced has never been done in MLS history. So that is something to look forward to. I do think we'll get Campana, Robert Taylor, David Ruiz, and Kramaski in the midfield. Ian Frey is going to start at right back, which is exciting. Unfortunately, Yannick Bright might get some rest. Not looking forward to that, but probably well-deserved. Franco Negri, he's probably going to play in this game. So we'll get heavy rotation in this game, but I do expect Messi and Suárez to feature in the second half. I think the team's just going to go straight from Columbus to Toronto. They will be there, and I don't think you're going to get you're going to have a lot of luck convincing Messi not to play if he is there and available and healthy enough to go at it. So I think we're going to see them. Guys, we'll be back for the pregame show 1 hour before kickoff. It is a little bit earlier this weekend. I think it's a 3 o'clock Eastern time start. Let me double check on that while Saurabh distracts you guys for a second.
All I'm going to say is I just hope some of these players haven't been drinking too much, because let's be honest, man, that Canadian journey is long and you don't want to do that on a champagne hangover. So I'm excited for that game. I don't know how it's going to play out. I haven't thought about my lineup. I haven't thought about what's going to happen. But if we can get that 3 points and then get the 3 points again against New England, then we're setting the records this season, man. It's felt like it was slipping away from us, but we're ever that close to doing it.
Yes, and also these are two very winnable games. That game is at 4 o'clock Eastern time, so it's a little bit earlier. So keep that on your mind. We'll be live 1 hour before kickoff, as we always do. And I think the points record's there. I think we're going to win Saturday, and I think we're going to beat New England in the tune-up for the playoffs. And then it's all about, the jewels in the crown are there. It's all about finally getting that MLS Cup crown, getting that trophy and the star on top of the crest. Saur, thank you so much for doing this with me. Thanks for being a part of this season with me. And it's so cool to say that our first year doing the Dry Pink Dialogue, have finished this season with the Supporters Shield. I love that for Inter Miami. I love that for us. I love that for all of the fans and everyone that's been with us as we have done this. It is so much fun to interact with you guys. So thank you for being a part of it. And we will see you guys on Saturday for that Toronto game. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this, and have a wonderful day.